Hello and welcome back. And we're into the next section of the book. We are reading a chapter called Saved by a Whisker, and it looks like that. So in the last chapter, Jack and Praiseworthy finally made it to San Francisco, and the boat that they were on, the Lady Wilma, won the race. Remember, this whole time they were in a race against the Sea Raven. And the Sea Raven at the last port of call had absolutely filled the ship full of coal, taken so much that it was even in mountains on top of the deck. And what turned out to happen at the end is that they couldn't go very fast because they were so heavy. And like Paige pointed out in her comments, that just goes to show you that greed loses and using your brains wins. So now they've arrived in San Francisco, and we are starting the chapter called Saved by a Whisker. In his pea jacket and stocking cap, Jack felt 14 years old at least, maybe 15. He stood in the bow of the whaleboat and watched the long wharf come closer. They bumped against the boat stairs, and Jack was the first out. His heart raced with the excitement of the moment. They had arrived, and he was ready to start digging. "Not so fast, Master Jack," said Praiseworthy. "Don't forget your pick and shovel." "And don't start digging up the streets," laughed Mountain Jim. "Folks might not appreciate it." A hilltop telegraph had signaled the arrival of a side-wheeler, and now it seemed as if all of San Francisco had turned out. The wharf was alive with men, women, and children, not to mention dogs, mules, and chickens. Seagulls flocked in the air like confetti. Weighted down with her belongings, Praiseworthy and Jack... Oh, that didn't make sense. Let's reread. Weighted down with their belongings, Praiseworthy and Jack started along the wharf. There were barrels and boxes piled everywhere. Peddlers and hawkers and hotel runners mixed through the crowd and shouted at the newcomers. "Welcome, boys! Welcome to the fastest growing city in the world! Flannel shirts for sale, red flannel shirts, gents. They don't show the dirt. Try the Nantic Hotel, the cleanest beds in town. Horn spoons, you'll need 'em at the diggins, carved from genuine ox horn. Stay at the Parker House, none better." The wharf seemed a mile long and the noisiest place on earth. Jack was dazzled by what he saw. And remember, I know we've talked about this a lot, but when we're reading and when we're listening, visualizing is really, really, really important to your comprehension and for you to understand what's going on. So Jack and Praiseworthy have gotten off the ship. They're finally in San Francisco. If you've been to San Francisco, it's nothing like you're thinking it is now. It's very tiny. There's people everywhere yelling that they should go and buy this and buy that. And so now we're going to read what else they see. So be sure you visualize it. I'm going to reread that last sentence. The wharf seemed a mile long and the noisiest place on earth. Jack was dazzled by what he saw. Tattooed people and sailors. There were Mexicans moving about to the jingle of their heavy silver spurs, and Chileans in long serapes. There were mule skinners and businessmen. There were miners in jackboots and red flannel shirts, with the mud of the diggings still in their beards. The city rang to the sound of hammers. Buildings were going up everywhere, and a sand dredger was pounding the air. Men stood in the doorways of the shops, ringing handbells. "Auction! Auction going on! Fresh eggs just arrived from Panama." Okay, hold on. Fresh eggs just arrived from Panama. So, let's see. Panama was way back where the cats got on the boat. That was probably 3 weeks ago. So if you consider eggs that are 3 weeks old, probably haven't been refrigerated at all, fresh, well, And let's see if they say how much the eggs were. Because remember, everything was so scarce and hard to find that they could charge a ton of money for it. All right, let's see. Let's go back. Step inside, gents. Onions at auction, 50 bushels, just come in from the Sandwich Islands. Also, castor oil and carpet tacks. Jack gazed about at the street of wonders. There was a smell of lamb from the chop houses and a sizzle of hot grease from the oyster shops. Suddenly, Mountain Jim stopped short. Billy be hanged, he said, lifting his nose in the air. Smell that? Praiseworthy nodded. It's strong enough to knock a man down. Makes your mouth water, don't it? Not exactly, said Jack, trying not to breathe. It's bear meat. Real California home cooking. Good luck in the diggings, boys. I'm going to follow my nose. Following up the scent like a bloodhound, Mountain Jim crossed the street and turned into a restaurant. Before long, Mr. Azariah Jones dropped away, unable to resist the lure of the auction shops another moment. Praiseworthy and Jack continued along the boardwalk, which was hammered together mostly out of old barrel staves, and reached the United States Hotel. Captain Swain had recommended it. A fine room, if you please, Praiseworthy said to the hotel clerk, and I think a tub bath would be in order. Very good, sir, replied the clerk. He was a bald-headed man with thin strands of hair combed sideways from ear to ear. That'll be $10 each. What's that? Praiseworthy scowled. Oh, we don't want to bathe in champagne. Water will do, sir. Champagne be cheaper, gents. Water's $1 a bucket. Unless you want to wait until November. Prices start to come down when it rains. We'll wait, said Praiseworthy. In this part of the world, he thought, a man had to strike it rich just to keep his neck clean. He signed the register, and Jack gazed at a bearded miner pacing back and forth across the lobby floor. He wore a floppy hat, and chestnut hair tumbled out on all sides like mattress stuffing coming loose. That's a funny picture to imagine. He kept glancing at the loud wall clock as if every advancing second might be his last. Jack couldn't take his eyes off the man. Tucked in his wide leather belt were a revolver, that's a gun, a horn spoon, and a soft buckskin bag. Gold dust, Jack thought. He must have just got in from the mines. Ruination, the miner began to mutter. Ruination. Praiseworthy blotted the register. How, he asked the clerk, does one get to the mines? Riverboat leaves every afternoon at 4 o'clock from the Long Wharf. Fare to Sacramento City is $25 each. From there, you make your way to the diggings by stage, mule, or foot. So I want to stop there for just a second. This is really an important part. So they've arrived in San Francisco, which is right on the edge of California. But the place where people were finding gold was in the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas. So they arrived in San Francisco. They're going to have to take a boat up the Sacramento River. And then when the river ends, they get out and they're going to have to take a mule or a wagon or a stagecoach and go up into the foothills of the mountains to the place where people are finding gold. So even though they're in California, they are not near the place where they're going to find gold yet. All right. Jack shot a glance at Praiseworthy. $25 each? Why, they didn't have that much money. But the butler didn't so much as raise an eyebrow. We'll be taking the boat tomorrow, he told the clerk. Ruination, said the miner. Come along, Master Jack, said Praiseworthy. The walls of their room were lined with blood-red calico, and there was china matting on the plank floor. The window looked out on the shipping in the bay, the masts as thick as a pine forest. There were not only gold ships, but Navy ships and all sorts of longboats. But Jack wasn't interested in the view. $50 to get to Sacramento City, he said. We'll have to walk. And we are going to stop right there. See you next time.